And we're live, in the words of Chris Sampson. Welcome, everybody, to our second edition of New Comic Wednesday, aka NCW, or as I like to say. Last week, we dove into cryptids, some personal story about comics, and the gut punch of the courier. If you need to catch up, you can catch it all on our NCW on Facebook and YouTube, everything that we did last week, to get yourself familiar. I'll kind of give everybody a second to join. But today we'll be exploring our newest release, an H.H. Holmes book that we did. It was a GRIMM Tales, Fairy Tales Quarterly. And we're going to be featuring the writer, Jay Sandlin, in just a few moments. As true in all of my segments, here are a few fun facts about H.H. Holmes. So I shared a fun fact on our Instagram story before, and Ralph got really upset about me was sharing it because it technically discredits our synopsis. So my bad. But apparently H.H. Holmes had claimed that he had only killed 27 people, and the rest of the world had claimed he had killed 200 people. But actually, it's only been proven that he killed 9 people. But that doesn't say that he didn't, Ralph, Amber's unfun fact hater, doesn't mean that he didn't not kill 200 people. Okay, we're really not sure. We've only been able to prove that he killed 9 people. Some other fun facts about H.H. Holmes is he was technically married to 3 different women at the exact same time. And every time he went to divorce a woman, he actually would never follow through with it. He'd file paperwork and then never went through. And then when he actually was put to death, he was technically married to 3 people still. He was requested to be buried in concrete. And that was because during that time, a lot of grave robbers were still robbing graves for science. And he knew that he would be super infamous, obviously, because he's very conceited and probably a narcissist. But there were myths going around that he was buried in concrete. A lot of people didn't believe it. And so in 2017, his great-great-grandson exhumed the body to bury, the rumors. And his body was in fact in a concrete tomb and later transferred to UPenn for research. Lastly, there is going to be a movie adaptation about H.H. Holmes, or the rumored is, of the infamous story by Eric Larson, The Devil in the White City, which is a fantastic read if you've never read it before. And it is going to be brought to screen by apparently Leonardo DiCaprio. Jenna, I love this. Everybody share your fun H.H. Holmes facts because I would did he kill no. Actually, well, did everybody watch I Heard You Paid Houses? Totally separate. Also really great book, which technically says what happens to Jimmy Hoffa, although, I guess we're not really sure. Anyway, for time short here, let's kind of dive in. So our newest release is this GRIMM Tales of Terror Quarterly, H.H. Holmes themed, obviously, which is why I'm sharing all the fun facts. The price is $8.99. We have 3 beautiful covers. We have cover A, which, as you will see, Ralph will put up in a second. It's not the background. The background that I have is cover B. So I can kind of, I guess, just talk about that for a moment. Cover B, I love. It's very, very cabin in the woods, very like Shut In. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the horror movie Shut In with my boy Rory Culkin. There's cover B. Yeah, it's a house. And obviously I'll kind of dive in a little bit more in a bit about why it's a house, but there's a relation there. And then Ralph, do you want to share cover A, which I had initially skipped over to talk about cover B? Yeah. So, wow, she looks super great in this. I love the cover. I love like the low top that she has. And then there's also a cover C. So we have our 3 covers here. Yep. A nice behind the scenes of her and her little top hat, which I assume is a homage to H.H. Holmes and her acting as H.H. Holmes. So just quick dive about the book. This has a twisted 3rd act, and I felt like it was kind of an M. Night Shyamalan movie, but like not, because there were so many twists I didn't see coming. But this is really the perfect book for any true crimers. I know that a lot of our fans are so loyal and true, and I love you guys all, but we need to get into the true crime crowd. Like, I love true crime. We talked about it before. Jay said it. Like, all females love true crime. Everybody loves true crime, but like, you can kind of just binge with wine at any point. So Just like the eerily similar background of H.H. Holmes, Zenescope's newest release has to do with a hotel, aka the cover of this book, which is my background, the Gemini Hotel, right? Like Gemini, oddly, suspicious because we all know that gems are, for lack of a better term, two-faced or have two different identities. Which that's not a rag to gems because I'm a Gemini. I love gems, but I felt like that was a hint, kind of going into the story. And with the synopsis, with the blood of 9 confirmed and 200 suspected victims on his hand, H.H. Holmes is not only America's first serial killer, but perhaps the most notorious murderer of all time. 100 years after his final kill, his name remains synonymous with torture and death. Ooh. But bodies are now being discovered in Chicago in circumstances chillingly familiar to those who know H.H. Holmes' story. Could a copycat killer be on the loose in the city, or is it something more sinister about to come to life? So without further ado, I am adding Jay to the stream. Welcome, Jay.
All right. Thank you for all the cool words. And I'm glad you liked the book.
Yeah, the book was great. So before I kind of dive in, you obviously were credited as one of the writers for the book, but what other works have you done with us in the past?
Nothing with Zenescope. This was my first one, but it won't be the last. We have another one coming out this year with Zenescope. It's already on previews, so make sure you pick up Neverland Annual 2021. I wrote that, and we're going to go back to Neverland in a very strong way.
I love that. I can't wait to have you back on the show so we can discuss, but I'll kind of hit you with my first question. So this story had a lot of critical backstory on his kills, how he rose to popular culture. What were your biggest researching tools for authenticity? Was it Reddit? Was it books?
Right. Well, I have a master's degree in history, so I guess you could say I started getting the tools to research then. And I went through documentaries. There's a great H.H. Holmes documentary on Amazon Prime right now. I really enjoyed watching that. And I looked up, websites as well. And then I like to just kind of play it off the cuff a bit and let the script carry things forward with edits, bouncing things off the editors. But a lot of the research came from documentaries primarily.
That's pretty interesting. What is the documentary on Amazon Prime right now so I can quickly add it to my notes?
I think it's just H.H. Holmes.
Gotcha. Adding that in. So while you were like really immersing yourself in the storyline and in the book, did you find yourself like going down a rabbit hole?
He is a bit of a rabbit hole, yes, because I think, like you mentioned in the intro, we don't know everything. We don't know the full depths of what he did, except that it was very, very dark. I think everything in the flashback portions, the flashback scenes that take place in his time period, I wanted to get accurate to things that he actually did or could have done because there's still so much that we don't know.
Yeah, he was for sure a narcissist. And I think that's why it's so difficult to believe anything he says. You get what I'm saying? Like, oh, I killed 27 people. Well, okay, then some of the people you named are actually still alive. And then he had so many insurance fraud claims that it's like, can we believe
Yes.
anything this man says?
And that's another point of research. I've actually sold life insurance myself for over 10 years, so I do know the workings of life insurance. It's interesting how it would have been, he could have skirted by a lot of rules in the 1800s that, now we obviously you'd have a harder time getting by. But he loved his cadavers. And what you mentioned about him being dug up and found again, how do we know that was his body they dug up again? He
Yeah,
kept he kept a lot of supply. He had a lot of extra in stock. He could have been someone that looked enough like him.
You're right, especially because it was in an unmarked grave. And like, I get, because a lot of times they do unmarked graves, especially with notorious people who are on America's Most Wanted to get unmarked
Mhm.
graves usually. But, so you're not really sure because that was like 100 years ago.
Sure. And we know that he loved to collect on life insurance policies with corpses and cadavers that he worked on. And it was a big plot in the book that his business partner, Benjamin Detzel, was one of those cadavers he tried to collect on, but then he decided he'd rather use the real thing. That was something that did happen in real life. And that was where I wanted to base the big turnaround in the past for how he got caught. So that was true to real life. I tried to get the names accurate, his aliases in there, things like that. I really wanted to get the accuracy sprinkled in, so the people who do look into Holmes after reading this might go back and find those things and give it a rereadability factor.
I think, that says a lot about you, that you wanted to do so much research and really pay homage, correct homage. So, because those true crimers are going to read this and then be like, oh, that didn't actually happen.
There are some things they might question if they actually happen. I don't know that we have, I'm not giving away any big spoilers, but I don't know that we have evidence that he killed someone in a glass case of water, Houdini style. But Houdini was a contemporary of his, and he mentions seeing him at, I think, the Chopin Theater, and I made sure to look up, yes, that was a place Houdini performed at, and yes, Holmes did live in a time and place where he could have conceivably gone there to see him. Another thing was a murder weapon. We put in a chainsaw in the past, and that took a bit of research because a lot of people I figured would question, did he use a chainsaw? And we don't know. I think it's likely he did because chainsaws are actually over 300 years old.
Oh,
And
wow.
their original purpose, as stated in the comic, was to cut babies out of the womb.
That's right. They do touch on that.
They
Whew.
they did that, and apparently one day someone discovered they cut pretty well through tree trunks. So hence their modern usage came. But I had fun talking with the artists about what the chainsaw should look like and getting pictures and then putting our own spin on it because he was he would have designed his own stuff like he designed his hotel, the Murder Palace, and we came up with I kind of said a steampunk longer version of the 1800s chainsaw that looked a little more devious.
Yeah.
And I really like what they came up with on everything.
Yeah, the artwork is really, really great. That's what I feel is one of the strengths of this storyline is that the artwork and the story very well match. Like the notes that I'm sure Dave, shared and team were probably very, very precise.
We had a great time working with Rachel, the editor, and just getting those pages as they would come in, working out the details. I was really impressed with all 72 pages and how they came together.
Uh, Kind of going into that, so no spoilers, but the third act has a lot of twists and turns, and with only 72 to 74 pages, with like all the hish dish, is to create a backstory, make likable characters, and then warp everything. How do you keep to a very concise script and make sure that every page counts in a story like this?
I think that goes back to the basic rules of comic writing, which go down to show, don't tell. Say as little as possible. I think if you get some of the words out of the way in the beginning, it's easier to show more as you go into it. I usually, when I write a comic script, each page I base around 4 to 6 panels, and I try not to go too much above that. And then when it comes to dialogue and events and pacing, you want to leave a hook at the end of every page to get them to turn to the next and try to leave them wanting more at the end, which that was my goal with the ending for this book. Shh, no spoiler. But leave them wanting, go home wanting more. Yeah.
Besides our Ride or Die fans, like all of the wonderful people on the stream, Rob, Chuck, Phil, you guys are all really, really great. Who would you recommend this book to, besides also true crimers?
Sure. Anyone that any horror fans. I think this is great for horror fans. When I was talking on my podcast, Geekopedia, recently, I described it as Saw meets Supernatural. And we had a review on the GWW.com that said the same thing. So if you're into, I don't want to call it torture porn, but there is definitely some of that Saw feel to it. So if you liked the Saw movies, if you liked House of a Thousand Corpses, Cabin in the Woods, all of those things, I think your fans of horror, history, and true crime would all find something there.
Awesome. Well, that's it for today. I'm going to plug your social channels really quickly. Ralph, there's a lovely banner for that. And Jay, feel free to plug anything you'd like to right now before we send you away.
If you haven't already, make sure you've got Neverland Annual 2021 up on your pull list, and I'm going to have more this year. You'll see in July, I'm releasing a book called Gin Hunter, and there's going to be some more to come that's not been announced. But go to my website at jaysandlin.com, sign up for my newsletter, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at jaysandlin. There's an underscore at the end. So I think you'll find me if you type it in.
Oh, and it looks like Ralph is teasing some interiors really quickly so everyone can kind of see in the middle. Really great design here. Like you said before, the artwork's really fiery.
There's that chainsaw.
Yeah, that torture porn that, we can't escape.
Yes, I really liked the last one there with the jail scene and finding the ring and will you take it or not? I kind of thought that H.H. Holmes would have made a great member for the Sinestro Corps because of his ability to inflict fear in others. And I felt like he would have been offered the yellow ring. So there's some of that in there for sure.
Well, thank you so much, Jay, for joining us. We can't wait to have you back, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
So just a really quick recap for everybody on here. We did Grimm Fairy Tales Quarterly, H.H. Holmes. It's $8.99. You can get it at the web store. There are 3 different covers, cover A, cover B, and cover C. Cover B is behind me. Again, very cabin in the woods, creepy. Don't really know, but this is a fantastic read for anybody who's really into true crime, anybody who wants to learn more about H.H. Holmes, and anybody who likes M. Night Shyamalan, because there's a lot of twists that take place. So just really, really quickly, here's some things that are coming up with us. So we want to include you guys on. We're 1 week away from the anticipated release of Mango and Bunny Man. What? But pre-order numbers have been pretty crazy. So make sure you get in line, you go to the web store, because it's a very weird story. There's so many great reviews coming out, and it could only come from the minds of Zenescope. Our monthly podcast, Everything Zen, just dropped this past week, and there are some great interviews with Wonderland writer Raven Gregory, where he talks about taking mushrooms and some never heard stories behind the scenes, and Hulu star, boss level star Selena Lowe, which was done by Ralph and Mark. Fantastic interview. Tomorrow, we're having another Zenescope retailer live stream with Space Cadet from Oak Ridge in North Texas. Make sure you check it out and help support our brick and mortar shops. And yep, you can see all the information there, but make sure you tune in tomorrow. Our next virtual convention is a little over 2 weeks away. So make sure you take a spring break, aka our theme, I'm hilarious, and join us. Would love to have you guys on there. Just 2 weeks ago, our monthly movie club met, and they did the interview from the leads of Night of the Comic. It was a huge hit. You can see that interview on our Facebook pages and YouTube channel. And don't forget to be around for the end of this month, April 30th, for the Terminator theme. And finally, make sure you tune in every Wednesday to hear us talking about our newest releases. And that's it for our second edition of New Comic Wednesday. This is Amber signing off for NCW, where we don't tell, we only show. So I'll see you guys all next Wednesday.